city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap-ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own, tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues. Guess if you ain't at the table, you on the menu, and I'm that spitter, baby. They don't want you to see, but everybody's south of Capitol Hill's rocking with me. Boys smoke the trays and ponder getting their life together. I'm comfortable with my role, so I'm like, whatever. I ain't got a job, but I work hard. And you don't work hard, but you got a job. The irony is I'm judged while you feel the applause. I'm slept on, that's why I had to set this alarm. My dudes is armed, I'm armed with this arm charm. Body banging like she got that cream from Barry Bonds. Yeah.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
That trade season is here, a real hitter with a mic, I'm everything that they fear. With that hood ain't the same, I was all on their ass, I'm level-headed. So yo, my dudes love when I spaz, and I'm so over Seattle's passive-aggressive attitude. They don't call you back, what they really saying is F you. While I'm from the same place, I move at a different pace. I prefer if you just said it to my face, damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Average dudes with they average spit, writing average rhymes, knocking average chicks. The closer I get, I can feel the people starting to shift. I'm loyal to a fault, and everybody can't come with. Rap's a rich man's game, I'm only playing with change. They bang models and singers, I'm knocking my own flame, I'm different. The crowd, I move with the chosen few. Black thoughts, I could be the front man for the roots. No diamonds and gold, I'm on my sticks and stones. If we can see your panty line, you should have on a thong. My team is strong, through this fire we forged a bond. And they already know what it is when I get on. To the hearse, party like it's December 31st. When I'm on my deathbed, I probably cracking my nurse. You ain't got the bars to compete, I'm a verbal athlete. Deflating these boys so they say that I cheat. Damn, I did it.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Yeah. I should probably start by apologizing for the long wait, man. You know, I know I be tripping. But I'm not just a rapper, I'm an artist. And, you know, my creative process is a little bit different than most. Nonetheless, I want to welcome everybody out to the Dre's Experience. I got TCF in the building, my whole camp's here with me. I got the band in here laying this cool-ass vibe. And I'm Seattle's own. Let's get into it.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday.
Grand Rising, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and I am feeling so great on this Tuesday. I hope this greatness is something you're also feeling out there in the ethos. Gotta bring my guy, co-host with the most, into the picture. What up, Big O? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, Trey Holiday.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? Just working things out as usual.
Right.
So
right.
with you?
I'm good, doing well. Started my day off nice and right. So
you're always coordinated.
Oh, you know.
All right. Good morning. I want to welcome everybody to the Morning Update Show and remind you that right now is a perfect opportunity for you to tag and share the stream. Go ahead and tag and share the stream with people who you feel would appreciate culturally relevant news and information emanating from right here in the Emerald City. Want to give a big shout out to our partners over at the South Seattle Emerald and also KBCS 91.3 over at Bellevue College. Remind everybody that you can listen to the Morning Update Show anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast. We got SoundCloud right there and in the links, but also Google, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, just go ahead and search Converge Media Network. What else do we got going on here? Oh, it's no excuses season. You know, we stay on brand around here. A great way for you to support Black-owned independent media while letting people know it's no excuses is to go to Where We Converge BIPOC.com/shop. As usual, Trey Holiday want to remind everybody that vaccine is readily available here in King County. There's a link there in the comments. The vaccine is free. You don't have to Cash App or Venmo anybody for the vaccine. And if you're seeking the vaccine, in some cases, they can actually come to your house.
Yeah, you know, what they've done really, is they've made it easily accessible for everyone. And, you know, if you are homebound, like he said, there are home services that they'll come directly to your home. But I was looking on their website, honestly, there's a lot of locations. They're really all over the county, making it easy for everybody throughout King County to get access to this vaccine.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know, like I said, we want to be able to leave some space and grace for people that are vaccine hesitant out there and got questions and concerns about the vaccine. A lot of times, you know, some people I see the internet is really heating up around this vaccine issue, and now with the FDA giving their approval to Pfizer. But I invite people, though, you know, I mean, just a one-on-one conversation. Don't worry, I don't put you on the news or something unless you want to be. But what's driving your hesitancy? You know, you can send me an email directly, Omari, OMARI, at whereweconverge.com. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about it, because we want a better understanding. We also want to be able to leave some space for people who are hesitant and, you know, understand why. And a lot of stuff that I see, and it's a lot of people that I know. This is an issue for some people. They stayed quiet during George Floyd. They stayed quiet during a lot of stuff, but this is where they've drawn a line in the sand as around vaccine. I've never seen some people post so much, be so involved, so this and that and everything else. A lot of strong feelings about vaccination. There
really are, and I think that those feelings and opinions are growing day by day as we get more information, or as certain information pops up on people's news feeds, right? As we know, it's all algorithmically driven, so depending on what you always are reading or catching up on or clicking into, it may really tailor all of that information directly to you. And I think that, you know, when we talk about people being informed and engaged, this is something where people are man, they're reading articles, they're learning about this, they're learning who was behind creating the vaccine for all three of these vaccines that are available. There's a lot out there.
I think as well, though, right, is when people are going into especially the shame game. And it's unfortunate that even on national TV, on national news, and some everything else, we get a lot of the shame game. People are shaming people who have vaccine hesitancy. But then you'll talk to somebody who's hesitant, and they're like, "Oh, okay, Pfizer. Let's talk about Pfizer's history." You see what I'm saying? And I think that instead of trying to shame and beat people down, then we need to be able to have real conversations about okay, well, how do we get here, and what's this and what's that? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And really address those things, because our society is at a point where people are yeah, well, just because the government's telling me something doesn't mean that I'm going to do it. And just trying to shame people around vaccine without addressing their concerns, I think it's going to just drive a bigger wedge in our society. And we, like I said, space and grace, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. Space and grace is necessary right now, and I think that there are certain folks who say, you know, they're really hard one way or the other, and you know, maybe it's not about you being able to sway them, but when you hear where people are at and why people are either for the vaccine or hesitant about the vaccine or against the vaccine, you kind of have a wide variety of perspectives that are out there we can all learn from if we're just having those conversations. I think one of the things that I find in this time that's really unique is people just cluttering around the folks that have their same opinions, right? That actually have their same perspective. And it makes people maybe feel more comfortable. I'm not sure, but I'm seeing that a lot right now, where it's kind of groups that are clumping together that are like, oh, well, you're hesitant, me too. Let me, share my hesitancy with you. Or, oh, you're pro-vaccine. Okay, everybody's pro-vaccine, come over here. So it's reminding me of high school a little bit, like the high school lunchroom, man. You're sitting at certain tables if you have certain opinions these days.
No, it's definitely getting there. And actually, we've got Justin Carter here today from Capitol Hill Seattle blog, capitolhillseattle.com, and we're going to touch a bit on the COVID rules and what's happening up there in Capitol Hill and around the Central District, especially in regards to masks and vaccinations. And, Capitol Hill was a whole neighborhood early on to roll out and be like, hey, man, no vaccination, you can't get in, you can't do this and that. So we'll talk to him. We're also going to be talking to him about how the elections broke down by neighborhood. So it's interesting. It's by zip code, by neighborhood, who voted for who. And it's pretty interesting. It's kind of consistent a lot more around all three races, at least where wealthy people live. All right. Oh, man, how can we forget? We still got a campaign underway.
Unbelievable, man. He's the best player in the world. I'm glad he's on my side. And going into a Game 7, you want the best player in the world on your side.
The backyard got mountains in it. I do not move until my accountant finish. Big mason jars, each one an ounce.
Absolutely. One of the best in the world. You guys got to get over to Instagram right now. If you are not already following Jake Graff Brott, go ahead and follow walk.into.the.light. Let's get him over that 10K benchmark. I feel like he's getting closer and closer to it every day that we launch this campaign and run this campaign and this ad for Jake. And really, he has some amazing imagery, photography, and great stories. He's heartfelt on there, man. He's very open. So, please, let's get our guy over that 10K benchmark. It's a huge feat.
Yeah, there it is. Want to remind everybody that you can now watch the Morning Update show live on LinkedIn. Hello to everybody that's watching us on LinkedIn right now. There it is. You can go right there and follow us on LinkedIn, by the way, so you'll get the alerts. It's Converge Media LLC. And, it's different at work. Your coworkers walk past your desk and you're on Facebook or something and they look at you funny, or YouTube. But on LinkedIn, you could be sitting there watching the Morning Update show. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, it's good. And we actually get a lot of traction on LinkedIn. It's crazy. You just never know who's watching and where they're watching. Other thing is events calendar. I want to remind everybody. So this is our events calendar right there. You can go to events on our page. Looks like it's Friends of the Waterfront, Plankton Explorers with the Seattle Aquariums down at the aquarium today. But you can go to the bottom of the whereweconverge.com website and it says calendar submission. And you can go ahead and submit your event right there and get it up on the event calendar. We're going to beef it up. We're getting ready to, this is like pre-launch time for our event calendar and event alerts offering. So, you know what I'm saying? Send us your events. Absolutely.
I think that's one of the greatest things is, there's a lot of different information out there and events happening. And we want to make sure that our audience and our community is engaged and informed even when it comes to events, because we do a lot of news kinds of things here, great community updates as well. But one of the things that I love so much about seeing the resilience in Black community in particular is that there's a lot of events that happen, but there's events all over the city and all over the county. So please utilize that submission form to make sure that we're informed about your event so we can share them out.
All right, good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break here, and Justin Carter is going to come to the set. I'm going to talk to him about elections and a few other things. And then after that, me and you're going to have our continued discussion about Black versus BIPOC. It's not versus, by the way. This isn't wrestling, like ladies and gentlemen. But it's just that, a lot of times, and especially a lot of corporates, they got it down. They're like, yes, we're our corporation is 17% BIPOC or something. And you'd be like, oh, word. But how many Black people? So we'll touch on that as well. We got a handcrafted motion. I work hard on these. Justin Carter, there he is. Justin Carter, coming up right now for Capitol Hill Seattle blog. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
Hey guys, it's Besa Gordon from Converge Media. You can catch me on my show Rewind with Besa, which airs every other Saturday at 2 p.m. anywhere you watch Converge Media. Now, I know a lot of us still have questions about the COVID-19 vaccine. However, here are a couple things you don't have to question. Everyone 12 years and older in Washington State are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. It's free, and you don't even need insurance or citizenship status to get vaccinated. If you still have questions, and I know you probably do, you can visit kingcounty.gov/COVID for additional information. You can also call the King County COVID-19 call center at 206 477-3977 to get COVID-19 and the vaccination questions answered, get translation services if needed, set up an in-home vaccination appointment for yourself or someone you know may not be comfortable at a vaccination site due to a disability, anxiety, or other reasons. Look, with summer being here, now is the time to get all your COVID-19 vaccination questions answered so we can all get out the house and live our best lives again.
Market Street Shoes, slinging kicks since 2006, with styles that support you and yours, getting the F outside or staying comfy when you just want to lounge indoors as well. But wait, Market Street Shoes is way more than just a shoe store. Gear up for your next outdoor adventure with apparel and accessories that'll have you looking good on the streets, the trail, or even in your own backyard. With locations in Ballard, Redmond, and online at marketstreetshoes.com, there's undoubtedly a style and size that'll fit your lifestyle.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. And, you know, my good guest right here has the benefit of the outstanding lighting today. Want to welcome back to the Morning Update Show in another studio. You know, you've been with us for a while in the different changes. Justin Carter, Capitol Hill, Seattle Block.
Yeah, I like to check it all off. You know, I've got now every time you move, I need to come through and give it a test.
Yeah, and you were even with us at the Paramount too, huh?
Yeah, I've done it all.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. All right, so we're gonna talk about a few things here. And actually, I saw you nodding your head when we talked about Black versus BIPOC. I think you had retweeted something a few days ago that my brother tweeted out about that too.
For sure, it's the kind of word that governments and community groups love. It covers a lot of ground sometimes, right? And it's always about what's in the details.
Definitely. Okay, so what we brought you on over here first about is this article right here, and we'll put the East Republican line mapping the 2021 primary results for Capitol Hill and the Central District from the Capitol Hill Seattle blog. You wrote it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, as long as I've been covering the central area of Seattle, Central District, Capitol Hill, we've seen results hold for areas around the water, areas to the north up in Capitol Hill, and areas south of the Central District to almost be walls of voter preference. A lot of that gets attributed to land values and the cost of housing. Rich people vote one way, poor people or less rich people vote another. But in a city like Seattle, I have to say, after watching this for over a decade, it was going to have to start to maybe make a new narrative. This is a really expensive and wealthy city. Both sides of those lines sometimes have a lot of wealth involved, but we're still seeing an area that basically we demarcate around East Republican on Capitol Hill, where there's a line. Above that, you tend to have more conservative, more of the centrist support. Below that, into the Central Districts, where you get a little more of the radical Seattle with a lot of our leftists.
Yeah, and what I was going to say though is the Central District. Let's be clear. We didn't get gentrified out the Central District by hardcore conservatives. No. You know what I'm saying? We got gentrified out of the Central District by like rich young white people.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. No, and that's what we are seeing. We're seeing voting trends that acknowledge and are part of that demographic mix, and it's making it for a pretty interesting new political Seattle. And as it played out in the primary, that East Republican wall, for what it's worth, held, and it will be interesting to watch as we head into November.
Yeah, this is real interesting, and let's bring up some of these cool maps here. And we weren't able to credit the graphics if you wanted to point it out, but we'll put the first one up here. This is the race for mayor, and we'll keep this up here. And I'll just point out to everybody that what pink is Bruce Harrell and blue is Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yeah.
I'll let you do some explaining
These
here.
maps, by the way, yeah, they're courtesy of Jason Wheel. He works with a company called Tableau that does visualizations.
Okay.
So they grabbed the data and made some pretty cool maps. He did this on his own, by the way. It's not the company. In this representation, yeah. So Bruce Harrell's represented in red, and Gonzalez is in blue. And this is kind of like where I feel like what's John King on CNN when we're looking at all the precincts and voting. I should have a super map. But what we see here are the final primary results by voting precinct. And what we're looking at is a pattern that we've seen throughout elections in this decade. With you could swap in Shama Swant's results in this blue pattern, and it would look very similar to what she held in her last election. One thing I think that that challengers to Bruce Harrell should be an acknowledgement is that. The pattern looks a lot like maybe Carrie Moon's battle with Jenny Durkin last time, and there's definitely some Bruce Harrell inroads past the wall. You can see his support in some places south of East Republican, where we normally wouldn't see the more centrist candidates stretching, and also in the Central District too. Given his history and his connection to the neighborhood, that shouldn't be a huge surprise.
Yeah, so how did Harold do there in the Central District? It looks like...
Well, for the most part, he got held off. You see as far as if you were to declare a winner by who had the most votes in each area of each neighborhood of the district, that's his challenger came out ahead. But there are erosions on the edges of that, like towards Leschi and those kinds of areas, and especially down in the south, where he did pretty well, and that probably bodes pretty well for the candidate.
I think as well that probably talks to the shifting demographics in Seattle as well.
For sure.
That it'd be real surprising 10 years ago that if you had a candidate, irregardless, political, whatever, but a candidate from the neighborhood that went to Garfield and went to the UW.
Yes.
But it's not the same Central District anymore.
Yeah, and politics have also changed quite a
That's
bit,
true.
and what we call home has changed so much too. So many people in Seattle are new and don't really care about some of the Garfield
and that's
legacy.
true. That was one of the things I was talking to my mom about, is that there's so many different Seattles that you have to talk to now. And also though, I think that when you look at the map, can you put up the mayor map again real quick? When you look at the map here, and I think we're going to see this consistently in all the races that we go over, is that a lot of neighborhoods, you can tell that a lot of the legacy neighborhoods, a lot of people who live in the pink are people that I know, their parents lived there in high school, their grandparents lived there, and those stories of neighborhood and legacy, and also probably more conservative values are more consistent. And then you see these neighborhoods where it's a lot of change occurring, where you see the Central District, you see Inner Bay, you see Ballard, and it's a different kind of people that are in there. Any thoughts on that?
No, for sure. And I guess what's interesting about that is, while we're gentrification and all the damage that it does from a political standpoint, it might be the same thing that we're getting excited about sometimes from a political and progressive opportunity. And so we should start to kind of balance some of that and realize that. But yeah, some of the impacts from that are going to be much different than just whether there's a grocery store on the corner. It's about how we vote and the kinds of candidates that we put into City Hall around here.
Yeah, and also I wanted to point something out too, though, as well, because a lot of times, at least this is my analysis. I'm not a real political analyst. I just play one on TV. Okay,
on the internet, you're doing a good job.
But I just want to be clear, because when we look at these maps right here, right, and clearly we can see a lot of areas that have traditionally over 100 years been very wealthy, well-to-do neighborhoods. And then you see something like the Central District, and you see these shifts in colors and everything else. There's a lot of rich people that live in the CD, and wealthy, very wealthy people. So I think it's a misnomer at this point when people are like, oh, well, it's the poor people there and the Central District. I mean, like I said, the displacement in the Central District has been real. And these are multi-million-dollar homes and complexes that are being built there. And it's a mix of people, of course.
Yes.
But I don't think that it's genuine just to be like, oh, it's just all the poor people in the CD are now voting a different way. It's a lot of wealthy people in the Central
For
District.
sure, and that's why, because of how expensive Seattle's becoming, I basically tried to avoid that kind of analysis when I was writing this up. It just seems like it's impossible given how expensive this city is. Should we look at like Nikita Oliver's
Sure.
results? Because I think that's also pretty interesting.
So this would be a city council overlay.
And yeah, this is the CNN John King part. We're getting the maps. It's almost like election night here. But what's interesting about Oliver's results, if you look at the maps,
And you want to tell them what color
is,
it's
yeah, let's see. Is she up right now? Okay,
Yeah.
so Nikita is represented in blue in this one. And this map doesn't necessarily show the South as much, so this looks almost identical to what we saw with Gonzalez. But zooming out, if you come to the site, you'll see it. If you look around for other visualizations, you'll see it. Her strength as you move south
Their
is
strength.
much stronger than Gonzalez, and it's pretty impressive. I mean, she really, by the time it was all tallied in the primary, her late results really pushed her to a strong position, and she looks very well positioned. She'll have a big battle.
Right. Well, this is put this back up real quick.
I'm sorry?
Let's see here. So Oliver in blue and Nelson in what color is that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think there's supposed to be reds and blues. It looks a little Republican and Democrat, but yeah, they're shades of red. It gets pink.
All right.
Coral.
So it's interesting. You can bring that down. Nikita was here last week, and talking with them, it wasn't really, we didn't talk politics or anything. We talked about creative justice, but in talking to other political analysts, people who really stay on top of this stuff, early on, I remember I was telling people early on, I was like, Nikita's running for 9. A lot of people are like, nah, the city won't come around to that. Nah, it's going to be whatever. Nah, the city wants more a conservative of this and that. And then you saw Nikita picked up a lot of endorsements, some from unions and some of everything else. So this is squaring off to be a really big, to me, this seems like, I guess city attorney too, we'll get to that, but this seems to be like the polarizing fight. Because the mayor, for mayor, I don't really see it. I mean, they're kind of saying a lot of the same things. They're just kind of different ways. The ideology isn't too far off. I mean, it is, but it isn't polarized. But this, for the fight for 9, my friend.
Yeah, going up against Sarah Nelson, former city council aide, a business owner, regarded as the centrist candidate compared to a much more progressive, much more radical agenda and platform from Oliver. And it will be a good test of what Seattle as a city believes in. And from the primary, the results, maybe things will shift, but a lot of the traditional lines held up. But you can see what Oliver did build was a really strong base to work from in an area where you would expect it, but also did strong in some other areas. Like, Sarah Nelson's a North Seattle fixture, and so seeing any presence of Oliver up there at all is probably really good news for that campaign. That's not my beat, though. I stick to the Capitol Hill and the Central District areas, and Oliver really did great around the Central core.
Right. And it's almost kind of be expected, like you were saying. And that map looked like it almost looked identical. We were putting it together. It looked very identical to the race for mayor. Let's talk about city attorney, and we're going to put that one up there, Curtis. There we go. And this one has a little bit more diversity and inclusion.
Much more chaotic. So we've got the I'm going to use this up. So Nicole Thomas Kennedy's the kind of the pinkish orange, and Ann Davison, the more conservative kind of pro-police candidate, is in blue. The red is the incumbent, Pete Holmes. And what we see here is Holmes did well in the North Capitol Hill core, kind of what you were talking about, people who might have a history and have been living here maybe a little bit longer. But with him now out of the race, those seats or those votes are very much up for grabs, and really how the abolitionist message of the challenger for Thomas Kennedy goes up against the pro-police, law and order message of Davison in that kind of area, will be pretty fascinating to watch. It's not the only battleground for that race in the city, but it'll definitely be the one I'm watching, and it's quite a fight because you're talking about, like, traditionally the wealthiest area in District 3, a lot of long-timers, and a really good turnout zone. So that's a real place to claim votes, and a big challenge probably for someone with an abolitionist message.
Yeah, it's been real interesting, right? Because I was on a call, or one of these. I was a panelist last week on one of these community groups that had me on there, and I was telling them, I was like, man, there's something going on here that people must be in a bubble or something, in the sense that all we've heard is, like, polling says people hate city council. Polling said people, it's so much. It's like, they're like the lowest of the low, and all this research people are telling you is that, man, we hate city council, don't trust city council, city councils ruin the city and everything else. And then you look at the race for mayor, that, it's overwhelming support that came out for a sitting council member and then a former council member. What do you take of that?
Well, you can look at the city attorney's race and definitely see a protest vote.
Right.
And so protest votes happen. But voting is not asking the question that they ask in the polls. People can have that opinion and be generally sick of something and frustrated by it, but still be presented with a choice. And I guess that may be the beauty of an election, is that you still have to, you have to make a pick. You have to choose from an option. It may be the lesser evil, but it forces us to make a decision. And in those kinds of decisions, we put a different logic to it, I think. It's easy to complain in a poll, but in the end, we're going to pick the candidate we hope will do the best job to get us through the day. And so I think that's what you see. It is ironic. And it also proves that polling can only take you so far when it comes to politics.
Yeah, and I think, though, the point that I had made on that call was that there might also be an echo chamber that the political activists and media and everybody else is kind of echoing something the average person in Seattle's like, yeah, whatever.
There's that. I've become, this is the smallest kind of famous you can be, but I've become Seattle Twitter famous this summer for kind of taking a swipe at the strangers' endorsements, saying, it's a bit of an urban legend, they're so influential. But I'll also, at the same time, I'm actually probably wrong. They're super influential. People are so busy. They don't know what's going on. A lot of these decisions are based on I don't call it a whim, but a very quick research, searching around the internet, talking to some friends, and doing things like reading the endorsements from things like The Stranger. And that's how we get our leaders. And that's how the process works right now. And just like, I guess, like election, it's the lesser evil. I'll take it. It sure ends up being some interesting stories to tell, I guess, along the way.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, switching gears here, man, what's the COVID rules, regulations, how's it impact in Capitol Hill, Central District? I know that early on up there at the Hill, I mean, you couldn't go anywhere unless you could prove vaccination. And how do the rules now with the mask and everything else, how do you see it impacting?
Yeah, I think almost every venue that is a serious venue on a nighttime service, especially when it's most busy, when most restaurants are even bothering to open, you're going to have to show proof of vaccination and when you show up. So that has become kind of by default. The patterns are comfortable. I don't hear a lot of pushback. That it's.
Hold on one second. We're going to go to a break here.
Okay, cool.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't missing my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Public Health Seattle King County, Zero Youth Detention, along with our partners from across the South King County region, are committed to reducing violence and creating the conditions needed for our neighborhoods to be safe and free of crime. Too often, the response to crime and violence has been a piecemeal approach with a program here and a program there. When family units collapse, schools fail to educate, the economy fails to produce jobs, and crime rises, we've looked to law enforcement and punitive measures to save us. Nothing could be more wrong or further from the truth. Law enforcement can't shoulder all the burden or take the rest of us off the hook. We are acknowledging the lived experiences of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. We are centering community as the experts who can effectively identify key issues related to systems, policies, and practices that impact children, families, and communities of color across this region. Those most impacted by the issues will help call out and identify the root causes, including structural and systemic factors. 150 residents will partner with King County to develop strategies, solutions, and an action plan that explicitly addresses system changes needed and eliminates barriers to access for Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks. These residents will also identify the criteria used to measure our collective success. Simply put, we need your help as we do the work needed to make King County the safest in this country. It will take specific commitments from all of us, community members, our young people, elders, and leaders from the sectors all across this region. Together, we will get this work done. Please click the link below and sign up for a work group. Or you can recommend a co-facilitator from community for each work group. We look forward to hearing your ideas, concerns, feedback, and solutions as we build a community where all our children can be happy, healthy, hopeful, safe, and thriving.
Is somebody else listening here? I mean, to the actual stream? Are we back?
Back.
Okay, what do they say? Well, I'm going to do like they do on Instagram. Give us a thumbs up or a like if you can hear us good right now. We get any comments over there, Curtis?
That like button.
Okay, well, we got a thumbs up from all right. So we're gonna take a step back. I think we were good through the elections part, unless you had anything else to add to it.
No, I'm good on elections. I've said enough.
All right, so we were talking about COVID, the impact of COVID up there on the Hill and the masks and some everything else.
No, it's become business. The Hill's rolling with that part. You go out, you're going to need your proof of vax. There aren't many places that aren't requiring it. I know that a lot of the owners though say it is a drag. It's like takes the checking of like your ID and your driver's license to a whole different level because people have lots of different ways to show they're vaccinated. They don't have, I don't know if you saw that some dude got a tattoo of his vax symbol on his arm. I'm thinking about doing that. But like, yeah, it's definitely it's become just it's day to day. It's gonna be with us for a long time on the Hill. Bring your card.
Is there any pushback up there on the Hill?
From like actual real world where you see like the Walmart videos of people slapping each other. I don't hear about a lot of those. I do hear some stories about individuals causing a ruckus. There hasn't been like police incidents or anything like that yet. But yeah, you do run into mask holes sometimes still on the hill. The folks who want to make a political point of it. But you know, it's not a friendly neighborhood for that kind of thing anyway. So
Right.
I don't think
What I noticed though is a few weeks ago I was up there, man, it looked like Bourbon Street, right? And then now it looks like that policy of vaccination card, at least as far as nightclubs and stuff, it might have pared down a little bit. What do you think?
I mean, my experience with how many people are out on the hill has a lot to do with what time you go through. I went through the other night and couldn't believe it. It was in some ways really cool to see, and then sometimes a little scary too. There was a line outside of Chop Suey that was really long and full of kids out to have a really good time, and you would not have known what year it was or what was going on by anything other than the masks that kids were wearing. This is still a real vibrant, busy neighborhood. Things are much more consolidated. You don't find late nights going. The stuff late night doesn't go as late. Days, you know, people don't start as early. Maybe not everything's open every day now, and so those kind of things happen. But when it's open, it looks familiar, and that's probably a good thing for business, and probably a challenge for slowing the spread of the virus.
Yeah. All right. So, but before we let you go, so we've added a third topic here because I saw you kind of nodding your head over there when we talked about Black versus BIPOC, and definitely not versus each other as in like a fight, but you know, I mean, there is a difference between Black and BIPOC. But any thoughts on that, Black versus BIPOC?
Sure. The word or the phrase, the use of the term BIPOC has definitely exploded in city documents and in communications because it is so useful in expressing some really important ideas around people of color and making sure that so many of these programs are expressed and explained in an inclusive way. But I do understand, and I have often had the same thought of all of the things that it also obscures. And one of the main issues is when you can talk about a program that has, you know, BIPOC priorities, it doesn't specify how it may address specific communities that may need the most help. And the Black community is something that I've noticed the most because I cover the Central District. It feels to me that the word and that risk is probably highest around that. How the city works that out and how it's healthy to express that and deal with it is, I think, a major challenge. I am also struggling in it because I have to write headlines that summarize and stuff like that. And so it's definitely it's something I spend a lot of time on when I'm writing a headline and when I'm choosing my words, and I'll probably make mistakes, and I hope people will help.
I think that, and I'll say this, is that I think there's a difference. Well, one, with government, at least in the state of Washington, they're real restrictive because, you know, I-200 and everything else, they can't necessarily say that this is for this particular race of people or whatever. So they have legal. But like for me, I just really like corporate and business where, you know, they've already got it prepackaged for you. Oh, it's this much BIPOC and we do this and that. And you're like, oh, what about Black people? You know, it's interesting here because I think it's something initially well-intended, but what we find is the people who want to be able to navigate and still be exclusionary, they adapt the vernacular of the moment and then use it against you.
Yes, for sure.
So very interesting. Justin, before we let you go, how can everybody keep up with you on Capitol Hill Seattle blog?
So I do this every day, 24/7 at CapitolHillSeattle.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JSeattle. And we're also revving it back up on Instagram. If you want to go and get some pretty pictures, you can search for Capitol Hill Seattle, and we're posting a lot of things there these days.
All right. We'll have to follow you on IG.
Do it.
All right. I got you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
All right. We're going to take a quick break right now. We come back joined by Trey Holiday. We're going to continue our discussion on Black versus BIPOC. You're watching the Morning Update Show.
I did it for the city, I did it for the love, I did it for the people, I did it for us.
Back on this rap ish, I ain't even broke a sweat, homie, this practice. Pondering my next move, staring at my track list, hope I ain't miss my window. Praying like a Baptist, Seattle's own. Tired of this Game of Thrones. They made a list of the best rappers, and guess who wasn't on? While the disrespect continues, I'm steady packing these venues.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.
Hey, it's me, downtown Seattle, C-Town. Wish you were here. Here, to explore inside, outside, and everywhere in between. Where it's easy to get my good side. Here, where my rooftops invite you to come early and stay late. Where every view is a postcard, and each night out might be your best night ever. See you soon. Love, C-Town.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show. I'm joined again by my co-host, Trey Holiday.
Hey, what's good, Omari? It's great to be back. That was a great segment with Justin.
Yeah, Justin, man, it's our buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was crazy. Me and Justin, or all of us, we got acquainted Justin like firsthand during the Seattle protests in the chop. Like, he'd come over there to the bunker in the chop, join us in the Morning Update Show. Been fast friends of Converge Media since. So I'm glad that he could come down here to our new space as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's his first time being in our home studio. It's great to have him here. And, really, the topics that he always brings are on point. They're spot on. So he does a great job, man, of, being himself, but also really bringing some insightful information for our audience. So I love that.
All right. So Trey Holiday, I'm going to pitch this over to you first. We're having this discussion, ongoing discussion now for a while, because you're in community. And I'm using this in the good way. You know what I'm saying?
No air quotes.
Community. But tell us, when the conversation, and I think that people, at least a lot of Black people, initially going before last year, it was like, yeah, BIPOC, whatever, and kept it pushing. And there's a lot of even Black owned businesses that are like, yeah, no, we're BIPOC, or this, because that was kind of in term. And then we went into the Seattle protest. Some people always felt differently, by the way, but going into the protests here in Seattle, but also nationally, we see that a lot of what's come out of that is like, man, that there's nothing against BIPOC, but, Black people, just like everybody else in the BIPOC rainbow, basically have specific needs and things like that. But in community, what are people saying, Black versus BIPOC?
This is a really great topic to breach today, because I was able to have an amazing conversation yesterday. And one of our, kind of community elders, been out here doing work for a really long time, said to me, I asked directly, what does BIPOC really mean to you? And, at the end of the day, one of the things that he said that I appreciated so much was, just about being very particular and intentional with the language we use. So when you hear a term like BIPOC, you're not intentionally maybe thinking of everything that encompasses. It becomes its own category. It is an amalgamation of folks that are non-white. And then that becomes its own thing. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where, when you see kind of how people are responding to it, it means that when you come here, this is like non-white. But it also can mean that it's also part of something that is non-dominant. So this is why language is so important. And I agreed with him 100% about how we wield language, how we utilize language every day. All of that matters. So ultimately, one of the things that I find so intriguing, he said, look, I don't even identify as African American anymore, or just Black. I identify as an African who was born in America. And there's a lot of language and discourse happening in Black community when you're talking about, eliminating the divides that have been there in different ways around, those who are descendants of slaves, right? American descendants of slaves. We talk about ADOS now, ADOS. In that regard, we talk about African American, we talk about Black, and then we talk about our African immigrant population. And each one of these sectors really has specific needs. When you think about somebody who is a descendant of slaves that is here in this country and that has known this country as home their entire time, you're really talking about folks that have a set of specific needs. And also dealing with, as we're seeing now, we're seeing the data, it's showing that there's certain trauma that is embedded in your DNA that transfers over from one generation to the next. So if you really think about what BIPOC kind of means, it kind of takes away a lot of the intentionality when we begin to break groups up into specific sets. When we talk about the needs of the Latino community, for instance, right? There's no L in BIPOC, but we know that when we say now people of color, culture, we have really specific needs that are different than what the Black community needs or indigenous community needs. Our Asian brothers and sisters out there, we've talked about this before. Naomi Ishisaka was here talking about the term model minority and what that means. And how Asian community has often been attributed as some model minority in some general discourse out there, because they came here and they were just like, look, we're just going to do our thing, and we're not here to cause any real rifts or trauma. But she was like, that's not really true. And when you start having these deeper conversations with people that represent the ethnicities that make up BIPOC, you begin to really identify that there's specific needs in each one of those communities. And I think one of the things that's unfortunate about the term BIPOC is that it really doesn't take that into account. Kind of lumps everybody together and says, hey, this is, again, non-white. But I think we have to really be specific. And this is why, for me, one of my favorite terms right now is really the global majority. And I love to say global majority because I don't think that any one of these amazing cultural ethnicities represents a minority. So when we think about language, minority actually means somebody who needs to be taken care of, actually. If you look up some of these terms in the dictionary, you'll see what they actually mean. But the ways that we utilize them in society is very different. So for me, I love what he said there, that like, look, I'm about being intentional with my language. And BIPOC doesn't provide that level of intentionality oftentimes that we're really looking to have, particularly in Black communities, when we talk about this wide array of what it means to have this melanin in our skin. It takes on different connotations for somebody who's maybe fled their home country in Africa to be here, that's now an immigrant, right? That is somebody that if a police officer may see them or another authority type of figure, or maybe a white person, they think Black. They don't know maybe that they're Ethiopian or Somalian, or they don't have that kind of connotation immediately. And so now we're seeing that a lot of our immigrant population is saying, look, it doesn't matter. I'm Black because I see that that's what they see me as. That's how I've experienced some things now in this country. So I think BIPOC just washes away a lot of that intentionality.
Yeah, man, you really hit it right there. For me, I think that it was important, and it continues to be important for us. That Converge, clearly we're for everybody. We're for humanity. But our very clear focus is on the Black community. But I think people will find that a lot of our coverage and reporting, one, if it is on the Black community, it's uplifting or informational for everybody. Like we go down there to City Hall because we're reporting back to our neighborhood, but the information we're bringing back to City Hall is good for the whole city, irregardless of color or anything else. But like my whole thing with Black and BIPOC And I explained a little bit when Justin was there. Government, a lot of times their hands are tied. And so those are terms that they have to use because the voters of the state of Washington put in this I-200 and some everything else, which is a whole nother conversation. But, what I was talking about is corporates, a lot of time, they've got it down. And it might be coming from a well-intentioned place, but they can tell you, like, man, this is my percentage of BIPOC of this and that. And then you got to remember, so what people should realize also in the audience as well is that the flip side of that term and the flip side of the term of people of color is that it allowed big corporations to not hire Black people, hire other people across this color hue, and then report back and being like, man, you know what? We've been intentional in hiring people of color, but they've also been intentional in excluding Black people. And that's why it's always good when someone's like, this is what we're doing, this percentage of BIPOC and everything else, to ask a secondary question. Oh, okay, well, this is great. We see that, you know what I'm saying? You're building a diverse, inclusive workforce. What's the percentage of Black people that are here? And then you'll find that this number that might be at whatever, let's say 20%. Now, when you talk about the number of Black people that are there, oftentimes drops to 1% or 2% or something like that.
Well, this is why for me, so much of that conversation when I'm thinking about corporate spaces really resonates around executive leadership. Because when we're talking about economic opportunities that exist in a corporate structure, we realize that oftentimes, are you bringing somebody up from the production floor into the boardroom to help make decisions on how, processes and strategies and guidelines are going to be enacted on the production floor? Oftentimes, that's not what's happening. And so I think that when we're thinking about it from a corporate perspective, we also have to understand that these tactics are not new. Like you're saying, there's been a lot of different ways to have exclusionary practices that make it seem like you are rooting yourself in inclusion. But the truth of the matter is that the whole term of diversity, equity, and inclusion has really been in the last probably 4 years really booming in the corporate sector. I remember going to starting my job at an advertising agency, and they were like, well, oh my gosh, you're here. You got to be a part of this. Then it was just diversity and inclusion. It was not, equity was not part of it, right? You have to be a part of this DI group. We would love to help, hear your responses, your opinions on certain things. But ultimately, was it just to be able to say that they had this group? Because the things that we were enacting and trying to implement in the office was really a real structure around how do you get these Black folks that are here doing campaigns for your firm up into leadership positions. And what they did instead, and this is another thing they do, is they made it about women. Women is a way that we're being inclusive. But when you look at the leadership structure, you see a lot of white women. So there's a lot of these kind of tactics that I think we have to be mindful of when we're talking about intentionality. And I just feel like BIPOC is another one of those things. And yes, folks have their hands tied around being able to say Black or not Black. I've talked to council members about this, and I really think it's something that needs to be uprooted, because in terms of identifying real sustainable solutions to the issues that we're experiencing now, when it comes to economic injustice, when it comes to diversity, when it comes to actual inclusion and equity, ultimately, there's going to have to be some specific measures that are designed to be very intentional about specific populations that have not been at the tables or not been leading certain tables to make pathways to make that happen. So ultimately, I think that there's a lot that we can dive into in this, man. You open up the gates for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, it's an important conversation that I think that we continue to discuss. And man, let's also see, people are running for office. There's a general election that's coming up for mayor, position 8, position 9, city council. Let's see who's going to be bold enough to actually use the words Black. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with BIPOC, and in some cases, like Justin Carter said, he makes headlines. He writes for Twitter. He's this and that, but I think it's the intentionality of where the word is used. It also lets people know, like, how in tune are you is it, I've talked to some people that early on in the election, and they pull me to the side and be like, man, I want you to know that I'm real supportive of BIPOC and this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, me too. But what about Black? And, again, I think people who've been following Converge, they know that it's like I said, we're for everybody. We're for humanity. We're for a better society here. But I think that our viewers probably also appreciate the game that's being played with this term BIPOC. And that's oftentimes used against us. And it's a very good marketing ploy out to the general public. Man, we're so supportive of BIPOC communities. We're doing this and that. And a lot of times we're actively being worked against while the public thinks that things are forced. I mean, man, we can catch it from all sides sometimes, Trey Holiday.
Oh, not sometimes. I feel like almost all the time. Honestly, when we think about a lot of these things and when we look historically speaking, there's always been examples of what this looks like from a wide variety of perspectives, industries, sectors of government, sectors of the world, you name it. There's a lot of different ways that this happens to Black communities in particular. And I think that there's really, it's time for us to learn from that history, learn from some of the approaches and strategies that have not worked. So we can change them, man.
All right, good stuff. It's good that we're gonna keep this conversation, like I said, going. And let's see who's able to use the word Black. Who's gonna be bold enough to just say Black.
I like that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. Because like everybody. Let's just see who has the courage to do it. It's okay, and I'm letting everybody running for office out there know, at least over here. One, and I think we told people this a long time ago, right? When you come to the studio, I'm like, listen, man, don't be on the word BIPOC. But one, I'm just telling you, it's okay to say Black if that's who you mean and who you're intending. And if you do say BIPOC, then you got to be prepared to go beyond that statement and then break down what you mean for Black and Black people. So, All right, we're at the top of the hour. Trey Holiday, getting ready to get out of here. Any last words?
These hours go by so fast. My last words are really consistent. And it's because I understand that when we all see ourselves as part of solutions, that, we're really looking to change the world and change our country to make it better, change our city, our county, our state. It needs all of your voices. It needs your perspectives. It needs the diversity. It needs to be inclusive of all of us who have something to say about how we actually make it happen. And so please see yourself as a part of an amazing solution out there. And for those of you who may be watching that are okay with the way the world is right now, you're okay with your city, county, state being the way it is. Maybe you don't want to see yourself as a part of the solution. And I got to tell you, that's okay too, because it's your prerogative in this world. But I'm talking to those of you who are really ready to make some change happen. Throw yourself in the hat. Make sure that you're a part of all of these amazing solutions. There's so many ways to be engaged and involved. And I'm talking directly to you. See yourself as a part of the solution somehow, some way.
All right. I like that. I'm always trying to be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And we're moving in over here. We still got a lot of solutions we got to find. But we're getting there. What's it, Tuesday? I don't think we have anything additional on air today. We got our young. Go ahead, put up your overlay over there, Cuddy. Sleepless in Seattle. Link is in comments. You know what I'm saying? This is September 5th. We're supporting Curtis Delgado Jr., our director over there. So we put that in the links. Outside of that, I think that's it for today. Again, want to thank all of you, our viewers, our supporters, donors. And man, I do have an update. I don't want to give away too much, but our wall, people can't see. Maybe we'll bring another camera in here. But behind us is a big, huge curved wall and a bunch of other stuff in here. And they start on it tomorrow.
Nice.
And so we'll be breaking out our whole studio here in just a few weeks. So, this is our abbreviated set, and then we'll be going to the full set. So that being said, though, we'll put it on the wide. Want to remind everybody, go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity. And until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till sound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun.